Okay, welcome back. So this is a follow-on video from my previous video about cyber deception, and this time we're going to go ahead and install Cowrie Honeypot and do some configuration on it, and then we can look at the log file from Cowrie and follow it through some connections and see what's going on. So first things first, I've got a brand new Ubuntu server. I've just stood this up. And first things first, let's get this thing up to date. So we'll do an apt update, get all these repos up to date, and then we're going to do an apt upgrade. Now this may take a while, so I might pause while this is running through, and I'll be back once it's complete. Okay, so we're back. Upgrades have been done. Now the first step we want to do is actually change the default SSH port from port 22, which is what we're currently connected to something else. So we're going to do that before we get Cowrie installed. I'll show you how to do that. So we're going to use VI and we're going to go and edit the SSHD config file. And we're going to come down here to port 22, which is the default port for SSH. And we're going to change it to something different. The reason for this is that we want Cowrie to be lifting on port 22 and be as realistic as possible. So we are going to move our default SSH listener to another port so we can still get connected. So, all right, we've done that. Let's write that file. And now we're going to give the SSH service a restart. Let's go by commands from here. The daemon reload, and we're going to reload the SSH socket. Okay, now we're going to just kill this session and then I'll reconnect on the new port. Okay, so let's connect to our Ubuntu server again. Right, okay, so we've changed that SSH port now to something non-standard, and now we can get on with installing Cowrie. So on the Cowrie website, they have a 7-step process, so we're just going to follow that through. So the first step here is to just get a lot of the dependencies installed, so Python and Git and a few other bits and pieces. So let's get that installed. And the second step is to create a Cowrie user. So we're going to actually run Cowrie under its own user and not under the root user. Just while that's running through, I'll grab my command here. We're almost done. Great. Okay, so we added a new user called Cowrie. We're not going to worry about entering any of the profile information. Yes, that's correct. Okay, so that's done. Now we're going to switch our user into Cowrie user. So we're currently logged in as root. Now we're going to switch user to Cowrie. And now you can see we're actually in as the Cowrie user. So the next thing is to actually clone the Cowrie Git repository, and we'll clone that down into a folder called Cowrie. Okay, done. And now we're going to actually get into that directory. And what we're going to do is set up a Python virtual environment. And a virtual environment is basically a Python environment that we can set up that doesn't affect, it's isolated from everything else on the system. So we can install different dependencies, install different softwares, run different scripts, and it's not going to actually affect anything else in the environment. So we'll get our virtual environment stood up. Okay, good to go. And now we're going to activate our Python virtual environment. All right, we're activated that. And we're going to, now that we're in the virtual environment, we're going to update pip. done that. We've upgraded pip. And now we're actually going to use pip to install all the requirements for Cowrie based in the requirements file. Okay. All right, we're pretty much done now. So Cowrie is installed, but before we start it, there's a couple of things we might want to do. So first thing is to move into the etc directory, and we can see there's a cowrie.config.dist file. Now this is basically Cowrie's configuration file, and Cowrie will read it when it starts up to find out what configuration it needs to run. But what we're going to do is actually make a copy of that, and then that's something we can edit, and Cowrie will actually read the copied version first, so we can make our own edits over and above what is default. So let's get that happening. So we'll just call it cowrie.config. All right, now when we list the directory, you can see we've got cowrie.config and we've got the .dist file. So Cowrie will read .config first for any of those changes that we might have made. It'll run off those, and if this file doesn't exist, it'll drop back to the .dist file. Now, the next thing we can do is actually start Cowrie. So let's do that. So we'll just go back to the Cowrie directory, and we just want to go bin/Cowrie and start. Okay, and now Cowrie is running. Now, the next thing we want to do, as I said before, is we want to actually make this look realistic. So by default, Cowrie will listen on port 2222, but the standard SSH port is port 22. So we want to make it look like we're running a standard SSH server. So the way we're going to do that today is I'm just going to use IP tables, and we're just basically going to do some port forwarding. So I'll have to jump out of the Cowrie user and go back to my root user because I'm editing the IP tables rules. And so you can see anything coming in on port 22, we're going to redirect that to port 2222, which is where Cowrie is actually listing. Okay, done. So now we should actually be able to connect to our Cowrie instance. So let me just get a new version of Putty running. And let's see if we can connect to our new Cowrie instance on port 22. So IP address here. Okay, so we're connected, and I might just make that a little bit bigger so everybody can read that. Go to appearance, and let's make this a bit bigger. Okay, so Cowrie has a default user of Phil, and we can just use Phil as the password, and we can see straight away we're logged in as Phil at server 04. If I list the directory, you can see there's not much there. We can do a uname and check what Linux version we're using. So currently it's reporting that we're using version 3.2.0. And we can also look at what version of SSH is installed. So we're looking at 7.9, OpenSSL 1.1.1.a. So now we can show the actual power of what we can do with Cowrie. So we go back to our config file. So let me just get back into our Cowrie user, and we'll go into the Cowrie folder. Okay, and we'll edit our Cowrie.config file. if we scroll down, you can see there's the hostname server 04. So we saw that was what it was called when we logged in, and obviously that's pretty obvious. You know, it's the default Cowrie server name, so anybody connecting would put two and two together. So what we're going to do is call this. Let's call it Ubuntu Web Server 01. Or actually, yeah, that will do. Ubuntu Web Server 01. There's a bunch of other stuff we can change here, but we're going to go down a bit further in this config file. And what we're going to do is actually change how the Linux kernel version is reported and the SSH version is reported. So if we come down here, okay, so now we can see we've got a kernel version of 3.204. We can change that to be whatever we want. So let's change that to be 3.2.1.4. And we said we're Ubuntu, so let's change that to be Ubuntu, and we're going to call it, we can call it whatever we want. Let's go 3.2.1, and we'll leave it at that. Okay, now the SSH version, I don't know actually which version of SSH is current right now, but as an example, we could change it to be whatever we want. So we can make that 8.1, and we could say we're going to use OpenSSL version 2.2.1, and that was current as of 2024 as an example. Okay, so we've made a few changes. So what we're going to do is just going to exit and save this file. Yes. Okay, let me just drop back, and we're going to restart Cowrie. Okay, we've restarted Cowrie, and now you can see our connection dropped. We're going to restart that connection. Restart session. Okay, we're going to log in as Phil and Phil. And now what I might do is just clear the screen. We can see we've got Ubuntu Web Server 01, so that looks a bit more realistic as to something we might actually see in the real world. If we do our uname, you can see the host name there is updated. We've changed the version to 3.2.1.4, and it's now reporting Ubuntu and not Debian. And if we do SSH version, you can see we've changed it to 2.2.1, changed it to OpenSSH 8.1, and 20th of November 2024. So all of those changes that we made in the Cowrie config file are now showing to us as if we were connected to a proper SSH machine. So there's a bunch more stuff we can do with Cowrie, but for now, if we drop back to our Ubuntu server, and what we can do is actually look at the Cowrie log, and we can actually monitor connections coming in. So let's have a quick look and see if anybody has connected yet. Connected. Cowrie.log. I believe that's right. Okay. Okay. And here we go. So we can see connections. Well, that's a disconnection there, but we can see a bunch of connections. There we go, coming through. Just try and grab some of these. We can see someone trying to log in as root and password, and then disconnected. Connection was lost after 1.9 seconds from this IP address. and we'll see a bunch of those. Some of these are bots, and just scanning the internet all the time for OpenSSH port, and then they might try and download malware or etc. if they can get in. Um, Cowrie will actually monitor all the commands that are run in the console into the log file, and you can monitor any files that are downloaded, and we can do a bunch of integrations to VirusTotal, and export some of these logs into other other software like Elastic or Greylog or something like that, which makes it a lot easier to analyze than the uh, basic black and white text that we're looking at the moment. But you can see there was another connection right there. So a lot of stuff going on currently. So that's how to install Cowrie, an initial setup, and we'll come back to it in a second video and look at how we might output those logs into something like Elastic or Greylog, and we might be able to visualize those a little bit better. And we also might make some other changes like integrating with VirusTotal, um, or some other services like that. So I hope you enjoyed this video and it was useful. Please like and subscribe and help me get the numbers up on the channel. Thank you very much for watching.